Hi everyone. Let's continue looking at the evidence that supposedly supports the claim that aliens have visited the Earth. I asked for physical evidence, something comparable to how scientists were only convinced that the coelacanth still exists when an actual specimen was presented. I want to see an alien, or alien artifacts, some piece of technology that couldn't possibly have been made by humans because it's way beyond our current technology. Now, apparently we have something sort of like that. Big-ass buildings, in fact. Buildings so huge and built so long ago that humans at the time couldn't possibly have lifted those gigantic rocks they're made from into position. Of course, I'm talking about buildings like the pyramids. And we've all heard that aliens built those, right? Or at least that they helped out. Thousands of years ago, there's no way the humans at the time had the technology to build them, right? And that leaves us with aliens as the best explanation, right? I mean, come on, what else would have built them? I mean, God? Giants? The Nephilim? Some high-tech civilization that disappeared without a trace? Now, coming to think of it, all these alternatives sound familiar because I've heard all of them. Yeah, there are people who believe in each and every one of these alternatives, and well, how do we determine which is the best explanation? Of course, we have to look at what evidence supports each of them. Is there any test that could falsify the claim that aliens built them? No. I mean, even if we demonstrate that humans could have done it, it doesn't follow that they did. Requirement number 1 is not met. Requirement number 2, however, is, because the buildings are there to be investigated by anyone. Now, while we can dismiss this as evidence, since requirement number 1 is not met, this actually still makes this the best piece of evidence we've looked at so far, which must be pretty embarrassing. As for requirement number 3, well, that's a little tricky because it comes down to whether humans could have built the pyramids or not. If humans couldn't have done it, then I'm actually tempted to say that aliens is a simpler explanation than magic or deities. But let's look at whether there is any truth to the idea that humans couldn't have built them. The objection is simply that you'd need modern cranes to lift those big rocks. And I agree. The humans at the time couldn't possibly have lifted those rocks into position. But the problem with that is, who says they were lifted? Allow me to present the golden rule of mechanics. Increasing the distance means decreasing the force required to perform the same work. Suppose the rocks were pulled up a long ramp. That's a lot better an explanation than aliens did it. You could also consider the possibility that they used animals like oxen. People have been using animals to do heavy pulling for a long time. Yeah, the Egyptians were advanced enough to know the secrets of taming animals. Cutting the stones doesn't require the use of lasers or anything like that. All you need to do is make a little crack, put a wooden peg in it, pour in water, the wood expands and the rock cracks open. Oh, maybe I should address a complaint that I assume will be coming if I don't point it out. A pyramid consists of millions of rocks. There's no way it could have been built during a single pharaoh's reign. That would require several rocks to be positioned each minute for several years. Well, yeah, what's the problem? When you consider that we know that they had workforces of up to 40,000 men. Come on, 10 men can pull a rock that weighs 1.5 tons, which is the average weight of the rocks. It's not that difficult to place multiple rocks each minute on average. You could also keep in mind that the majority of the rocks are in the bottom of the pyramid. The higher it gets, the smaller each step gets. So when it gets difficult and time-consuming, each step in the pyramid will require fewer rocks to be positioned. But you know what? Even if no one had any clue how humans could have built the pyramids, that wouldn't be enough, because it would have to be demonstrated that they couldn't have built them. Otherwise, it's just an argument from personal incredulity. That's the logical fallacy of basically saying, I don't understand how it was done, so it's impossible. Moving on to alien implants. It turns out that some so-called alien implants actually exist and are in the possession of people willing and able to show them. I guess the men in black just missed them. Too bad not a single one of them is more technologically advanced than a rock or a shard of glass or metal, and not a single one can be demonstrated to be of extraterrestrial origin. There is one thing that deserves a closer look, though. It's been brought to my attention that some of these implants have organic material growing on them. Well, duh, that's what happens to a foreign object that gets stuck inside a human body. Until we're presented with an implant that can actually be shown to be technologically advanced or made from some material that can't be found or produced on Earth, only the second requirement is met. No test can positively falsify their alleged alien origin, and it's a perfectly ordinary terrestrial object that got stuck in some wound. It's a much simpler explanation than that aliens abducted you so that they could put a piece of glass in your right ass cheek. Next on the list, the aliens I asked for. Or not. We've all heard about alien bodies actually being found, right? And no, I'm not even gonna bring up that stupid autopsy. Damn, I just did. Alright, here's all I'm gonna say about that crap. We've been over video evidence. We're done. Instead of a peer-reviewed article in Nature magazine and a Nobel Prize being handed out, what did we get? A documentary on Fox. Moving on. I'm talking about these. These types of cranial deformation are known to be the result of intentional body modifications. They're human skulls. Intentional cranial deformation, which is done by binding the heads of infants or in some other way preventing the cranium from developing normally, is still practiced in some cultures. These skulls are human, get it? If they were aliens, DNA tests would easily confirm that. So we've got two possibilities when it comes to requirement number one. Either it's falsifiable and falsified. Or you could argue that alien DNA looks just like human DNA, and in that case the claim is unfalsifiable. Either way, fail. Once again, only requirement number two is actually met. We have no way to falsify the claim that they're aliens, or we have falsified it, take your pick. And they're human is a simpler explanation. Okay, so what about crop circles, strange smells connected to UFO sightings, burnt grass, cattle mutilations, things like that? In one gesture, none of these things even hint at aliens being involved in any way. Again, only requirement number two is met. The reason why the third requirement isn't met is The sheer absurdity of the claim. I mean, come on. Aliens traveling thousands of light years, overcoming all the problems involved in interstellar travel. And all they do is kill cows and play frat boy pranks on farmers. I think humans did it is a simpler explanation. Historical evidence. UFOs in paintings, stone carvings. Did we not go over eyewitnesses, photos? Yeah, these are even less credible than photos. A lot easier to fake a painting. Plus, consider that when we look at this painting or carving or whatever, we interpret it with our own modern minds and not with the artists. Now, I'm not saying that we are far more evolved than some guy a couple of hundred to a couple of thousand years ago. Actually, we're not. But we know about the whole flying saucer thing, you know? We are influenced by what we have heard when we look at that painting and try to interpret what the artist actually put in there. We don't know if it's there simply because the artist figured he'd put some abstract thing in there, if he thought it was some sort of symbolic thing, or whatever. None of the requirements are met here. The only thing that's objectively verifiable is that, well, there's something in the painting. Since there's no way to objectively verify what it is, even requirement number 2 fails. I have now devoted 3 videos to explaining why I don't believe that we are being visited by aliens, or that we ever have been. I hold that claim to the same standard of evidence that I hold any other claim. And the so-called evidence that's presented simply fails to meet that standard. A lack of belief is always justified by a lack of evidence. To a skeptic, the default position is always disbelief. This is what allows...
Now, you wait a minute right there, 'cause you ain't no real skeptic. 'Cause I found this website on the internet that, well, I didn't find it 'cause I can't read, but Bubba told me about it.
Oh, the Air Force pilot.
No, Bubba flies a crop duster. He been doing that for years, but wait. Is you saying that Bubba is in the Air Force? Is Bubba working for the government? Why, that's some bitch. Bertha, get my shotgun.
Whatever. Just, what did he find?
Bubba found this thing that said you ain't no skeptic, 'cause a skeptic don't say that ain't no evidence just 'cause he don't like it. Now y'all is doing one of them logical falsy whatchamacallits. 'Cause you saying if it might be bullshit, then it's bullshit. And that ain't, that's one of them logic thingies.
You really didn't pay attention, did you? I explained that the evidence presented just isn't good enough.
Whatever. You just go have a look at that website. It is on the internet.
Oh, well, thanks for being so precise. Well, fortunately, I know what this dumbass is talking about, so next time on Dissecting Pseudoscience, I'll be answering what the critics of the skeptics are saying. So there will be ponage. See you then.